but it's the same deal. And so it's not just a theoretical possibility. There already is hunger on this planet. And maybe it's not because the planet can't really feed itself. Maybe it's because food isn't reaching the people that need the food. But still, it's all part of the same equation. There are 1 billion people in this country, in the world, that are hungry. And now I got a lot of these statistics from the Earth Policy Institute. I didn't do all this research. I didn't do this research myself. I'm relying upon my trust in the fact that the person who runs this is very scientific. Okay, so 1 billion people in this world are hungry, and that includes not just not having enough to eat this day. It means not having any food to eat that day. There are places. Here's just a few examples. In India, where 24% of families go for days without food. Nigeria, even more. 27% of families go for days without food. Peru, many other countries. That's just a short sample on the table. And it's not just a problem of, oh, it's not in my backyard, I don't care. Hunger exists in this country as well. Greater than 50 million people in the United States are hungry. That's 1 in 6 people. And if you just look at the population of children, 1 in 5 children are hungry in this country.
Actually, last night I was watching MSNBC, I don't know if you guys watching or not, and that basically they gave a lot of these statistics, and they said the world shortage is reduced a little bit in the world, but in the U.S. it's really going up, like that's the hunger. The hunger in the U.S. they gave it really alarming numbers, that the number is not, it's way ahead of the rest of the world.
And say, oh, and you might say, well, oh, we live in California where food is abundant. It's not a problem here. I mean, maybe that's just a problem in New Jersey. Who cares about New Jersey? But actually, in Long Beach itself, Long Beach has 500,000 people. And there's a nonprofit organization called Long Beach Coalition for a Healthy Community in the Economy. I can't remember the name. And they do a lot of research on this subject. And they say that 55% of the children living in Long Beach live in poverty. Now, poverty isn't necessarily the best indicator of not having enough food to eat, but it's a pretty good indicator of not having enough food to eat. So even in this city, over half of the children in this city don't have enough food to eat. And Long Beach is part of Los Angeles County, of course, and there's another organization that studies these types of issues based on census data. And we had a recent census, but it takes a long time for them to crunch all the numbers. So this number is based on the previous census over 10 years ago. But over 10 years ago, close to 40% of Los Angeles County residents, according to the census, could not afford food to eat. In Long Beach, 55% of our children don't live in families with enough money. And poverty yields to food insecurity. Not having enough food leads to undernutrition and malnutrition. Undernutrition and malnutrition stunts children's growth physically. It stunts their brain development and mental growth. And it's an issue here, and it's an issue worldwide. Oh, here's a picture of a local food pantry. And there are several in Long Beach. This is the Long Beach Salvation Army food pantry. And okay, their shelves have food on them, but you notice they're all in boxes. And inside those boxes, they're all in packaged material. And so it's all processed food that's been stripped of its nutritional value for the purpose of having a long shelf life, which is important when you need to feed people, but still, they're not necessarily providing the best food that's available to people who need it the most. Not to diss what they're doing a great job. But luckily, they've actually created a relationship with a local farm here in Long Beach. There's a nonprofit called the Community Action Partnership. They have a location on the corner of Long Beach Boulevard and I forget the cross section. It's right behind the Long Beach Memorial Medical Center. And so the Long Beach Community Action Partnership pays, it has several programs, one of which is to have a small local farm there. And it's mostly a demonstration farm, but they also have a farm stand where you can go buy fresh produce. And they also grow a lot of the produce that they grow, they donate to the Long Beach Salvation Army Food Pantry. So, although it's not shown there, they have established a relationship with the local farm to provide some fresh produce. Okay, related to the the population issue is, and how are we going to feed them, particularly considering, at least in this country, the number of farmers and the amount of farmland is dwindling. So this is data, I believe I took this from the California agriculture site. In 1935, around 7 million, there were close to 7 million people in the U.S. who identified as farmers, who grew food to feed the rest of us. The rest of us being 127 million people in this country. But again, the U.S. agricultural economy doesn't just feed the United States, it feeds the rest of the world as well. For better or worse, people rely upon us. In 2011, more recently, the number of farmers dropped to 2.1 million. Even though the number of farmers dropped, the number of people who need to be fed increased. And this trend is continuing. So less than 1% of people living in this country are farmers who grow food to feed the rest of us. And of those people, many of them, unfortunately, are large agribusiness farmers, and many of them are also aging. Which is fine, except that what happens when they die, right? I mean, it's not necessarily, it hasn't been I guess, a profession that has been encouraging people to stay in this day and age of, of exciting city life and being able to rely upon a food system to feed you out of sight, out of mind, but at least you have food on your table. Some people are kind of changing their minds and saying, oh, I'm not going to become a farmer anymore. And the result is that our farmers are aging and will eventually disappear unless we replace them with a younger workforce. Not replace them, but add to them with additional youth. It's important to feed the population. It's also important for our economy. In the USDA report, the United States Department of Agriculture reports that in the year 2010, the United States food trade was valued at, now this doesn't say the amount of food, but it says what the monetary value of that food is, $116 billion. And in California, people who study this in California reported that California is responsible for 1/8 of that number. So California's economy depends upon agriculture as well. But remember, so you go to a farmer's market here. Has anybody here ever gone to a farmer's market? Yeah. You go to a farmer's market and the idea is to get local fresh food. But even at a farmer's market, local food doesn't mean it was grown right here. It should, but it doesn't. Farmer's market local definition means that they can get food all the way